I have a bunch of old phones, but my problem is that they stopped working. I probably don't need to tell you, but these guys right here are quite old, they have small screens and buttons. The phones themselves are still working, but their batteries have just been slowly dying one by one. And the thing is, I don't want to buy replacements for something I'll barely use. All I want to do with these old obsolete phones is put them out of a drawer every once in a while and mess around. And that is not worth tracking down and paying for compatible batteries and the shipping costs. What is there to do then? Well, one option is just to figure out how to power them up without their batteries, preferably just wired so I don't even need to worry about charging them. This is not a new concept actually. If you look at something like cameras, you can find dummy batteries. These just trick the device into thinking it has a fully charged battery even though it's running from an outlet. This is really handy because you don't need to waste any time on charging and you don't need to look after it like you would with a lithium-ion battery. It is worth mentioning though, what I'm doing here today has its risks, and it's not the way these phones were meant to be powered. Also, doing it wrong could potentially break them, so you have been warned. But first, before we do any of that, we should try to understand how one of these batteries works. At the top of it there are three metallic contacts. One of these is the ground, the one with the minus sign, and another one is the positive with the plus. That way it supplies power to the phone at 3.7 volts usually. But then what does the last one do? Basically it tells the phone details about the battery, like how much charge it has or what temperature it's at. But different phones will have different approaches to doing this. This older Nokia, for example, seems to be alright without anything connected to the third pin. As long as it gets power, it just turns on and works. By the way, you can power it with 3.7 volts from another battery, but here I managed to do it with 5 volts from a USB-A connector. If we move on to these slightly newer models though, they seem to have some extra safety precautions built in. I'll give it power just like I did with the previous one, but I'll just connect the ground wire to a metal surface to make it easier on myself. With the multimeter we can see that those bits are connected to the ground plane too, like the battery contact would be, so that is fine. We can see that the phone does not give any signs of life with only power. However, if we short the ground pin and the third contact with just a bit of metal like the screw, we get a phone that turns on, but it displays a low battery warning. And unfortunately, as a consequence, the phone may not allow us to do some things. Here for example, when I try to turn on the camera, it just refuses to do it. Because of this, we have to figure out how to trick that third pin into thinking we have a fully charged battery. And that is actually pretty straightforward. It can be done by using a resistor that is within an acceptable range of what the phone expects. This battery I have here is from some other phone, but I still use it as a reference for how much resistance the others may need. It indicated somewhere close to 70k ohms. I don't have any actual resistors on hand, so I just looked through whatever random stuff I hoarded over time. And I found this board with a tiny little resistor around the 60k mark. For now, I just soldered a couple wires directly to it because I didn't want to risk misplacing it or breaking it. I'll test it on this phone first because it has some little pads right here that make it convenient to solder some wires to it. I'm not that good at soldering and use some thick wires, so it took me a bit, but I managed to do it, and with only melting a tiny bit of the phone. Now that the resistor is soldered between the ground and the third pin, I will just connect the power to it like I did earlier. And yeah, there it is. The phone just turns on, showing a full battery too. Now I can just turn on the camera and take a picture of the rat's nest powering it currently. Isn't that great? But let's be honest, this is not an elegant solution, especially with having to either hold the wires in place or solder them down. That's why I wanted to come up with a solution to power up any of these phones in a more tidy way. So I got to work making a little 3D printed adapter that fits over the connectors and allows us to insert some wires inside. I modeled it using one of these batteries as a reference. I wasn't really hoping for it, but the first prototype already fits alright. A bit loose on the pins, but the wires do make contact, so we're all good. The problem with it though is that I made it 1mm too thick by mistake, so I had to go in and fix that. I also added a little cutout over the positive contact for the wire to sit in, and one covering both the negative and third pin so we can short them out and put the resistor straight in there. Speaking of, I got that one removed from the board, which actually went alright. I just put some light pressure on it with a screwdriver while heating up the contacts. I then just took some thinner wire and stripped it and soldered the resistor to it. However, when I was fiddling with them, the resistor came undone, and that was the end of it. I tried resoldering it, then soldering some thicker bits of wire to it, but it turned out nothing would stick anymore. So unfortunately for the demonstration, we'll have to go without that. I'll just take the ground wire and bend it to short out the third pin. Now, you probably noticed that this header is really small on here, and that is because I decided to make that a separate part and have custom sized adapters that can fit a specific model, like these ones. Using it is easy, just put the header on, preferably from the top so you don't mess up the wires, and then the adapter just slides right in, and it fits under this little tab to keep it secure. Now you can just turn the phone on and use it while the wires are kept in place and providing it power, so that's it. I haven't really seen any dummy batteries for these phones around, so I'll publish these 3D models that I made and link them in the description. Feel free to use them or remix them if you want to customize the size so they fit another phone, or for whatever other purpose you might have. Now that my phones are again in working order, I might find some interesting things to try out on them in the future, or just have a bit of a look at what was possible on them. I'd encourage you to subscribe to see more of me messing around with tech, and until next time, see ya.